All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really profound topic that, well, touches every single one of us, even if it's something we usually kind of shy away from talking about. We're looking at how we can prepare throughout our lives and right up to the very end to drastically ease the burden on the people we love. It's all about shifting our perspective on legacy. Instead of seeing it as something that just happens, we're going to look at how to actively construct it. So, what can a person actually do to prevent unnecessary sorrow when they pass? That's the core question of our source material. Now, obviously, we can't magically prevent the natural grief of losing someone, but the source makes a super compelling argument here. The chaos, the confusion, and the unresolved tensions left behind, that is absolutely a problem we can actively solve right now through intentional actions. To make sense of all the source's advice, we're going to follow this roadmap. First, facing the inevitable reality. Second, finding spiritual peace. Third, settling the practical matters. Fourth, leaving a personal legacy. And finally, living intentionally today. Let's start with Section 1, facing the inevitable reality. Preparation happens throughout life and at the end.
Moving on to Section 2, finding spiritual peace, addressing the soul and spirit.
This source really emphasizes getting your internal peace sorted out first. It points out, quite bluntly actually, that it can't be well with your soul when you're dead if it was never well when you were alive. Looking at this from the text's Christian perspective, the author is basically urging people to use whatever time they have left to draw closer to God. Instead of cursing fate or pulling away in anger, the advice is to name specific burdens, confess them, and just trust in a higher power. It offers this really hopeful message for the end of life, pointing straight to the biblical story in Luke about the thief on the cross who secured salvation at the literal 11th hour. The whole goal? Securing an inner peace that radiates out to everyone around you. And this brings us to a brilliant contrast the author makes about what we leave behind. Normally, when we hear the word inheritance, we think of tangible stuff, right? Money, the house, maybe a collection of vintage books. But the source argues something completely different. It says that proactively passing down spiritual teachings and setting a solid moral example while you're still healthy is actually the ultimate treasure. I really love this metaphor from the text. A godly life is indeed the best baton that one can pass on to others. It visualizes life like a giant relay race. Your physical stuff, that just gets left on the sidelines. But an exemplary, intentional life, that's the actual baton you're passing straight into the hands of the next generation. Now, to find true peace of mind at the end, the text says you've got to commit your family to God's care and just trust they'll be okay. Interestingly, the author addresses a really specific anxiety, parents worrying about kids who might have strayed from their faith. The advice here is to view those who've turned to atheism or agnosticism as folks who just need spiritual treatment. Instead of despairing, families are encouraged to simply pray for their future and guidance. Okay, Section 3, settling the practical matters, wills, debts, and unfinished business. Because, look, internal peace is fantastic, but it definitely won't pay the outstanding bills you leave behind. The text outlines these critical, highly actionable steps to wrap up unfinished business. It even throws in a wild biblical example from 2 Kings, where a guy's failure to settle his debts before dying literally resulted in his sons being taken away as slaves. Now, while we might not be dealing with slavery today, leaving behind unresolved debts, messy finances, or unclear funeral details creates an absolute immediate nightmare for a grieving family. So please pay attention to this crucial legal warning. The source highlights a massive pitfall that catches so many people off guard. An insurance company will only pay the beneficiary named directly on their policy document. Let me repeat that. It completely does not matter if your last will and testament clearly states the money should go somewhere else. If the documents don't match exactly, the insurance policy wins. Fixing this one tiny administrative detail today prevents devastating financial surprises tomorrow. And failing to have a clear, legally sound will, that plunges your family into what we call intestate chaos. Without a will, the government might step in and claim the fruits of your life's work. Families almost always end up in bitter, awful disputes over what's fair, and the whole estate gets bogged down in long, incredibly expensive legal battles. Taking the time to draw up a fair will based on genuine needs just stops all of this chaos dead in its tracks. Next up, Section 4, leaving a personal legacy, diaries, voice recordings, and videos. Pivoting to the more emotional side of things, it's fascinating how different mediums provide uniquely powerful comfort for families on their hardest days. Jotting down your true feelings in a diary conveys your clear, final desires. Photos and videos literally preserve how you moved through the world. And a voice recording, maybe it's just you giving some words of encouragement or humming a favorite tune. Offering the soothing, familiar sound of your voice is incredibly comforting when someone is missing you. To really drive home the power of these modern tools, the author drops this surprisingly simple mathematical fact. Just think about this number for a second. 1800. A standard 30 frames per second video that lasts just one single minute actually contains 1,800 distinct frames, or actions. Think about that. Thousands of captured micro-actions. Your exact mannerisms, the specific way your eyes crinkle when you laugh, the way you talk with your hands, those things soothe grief in a highly concrete way that your family will only fully appreciate once you're gone. So seriously, take the videos now.
Finally, Section 5, Living Intentionally Today, Fulfilling Promises and Taking Breaks.
The source material takes a brilliant little pivot here, pulling our focus right back to the present. To prevent that crushing sense of deathbed guilt, the advice is super practical. Take action now. Fulfill those promises you've been sitting on. Buy the bicycle you promised your kid. Actually take that trip to see the relative you keep putting off. The text points back to the biblical figure Israel, who finally found profound, deep peace after traveling to see his son Joseph after 22 whole years apart. The takeaway? Don't leave your promises unkept. The author then brings up the global COVID-19 pandemic to make a really sharp point about our modern lives. When the whole world essentially stopped, it exposed a startling truth. The hurried life we all live isn't strictly necessary. We don't absolutely have to be everywhere doing everything. The text challenges us, especially those who have the means, to maybe step completely out of the rat race for a bit. Take some time off to prioritize what actually matters, caring for aging parents, being fully present with your kids, or finally chasing down a personal mission. There's this highly poetic observation in the text. God indeed wants you to pause at regular intervals to bring you to stillness. It's a powerful reminder to regularly audit our lives. It's not just about weeding out the clearly unimportant stuff. It's about looking at all the important things you're juggling and ruthlessly figuring out what is truly vital. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. As we wrap things up, I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on today. Take a hard look at your calendar and your daily commitments. Are the choices you're making right now building the legacy, the clarity, and the peace that you want to leave behind tomorrow? There is so much more wisdom packed into the original text, so I absolutely encourage you to check it out for yourself. Thanks so much for exploring this with me.